Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for all those in the chat who have been waiting. Sorry, I'm a little behind today. I've been out of town for the past, 4 days, taking my lovely daughter to a dance competition in Vegas. So life still happens through all of this. And we were driving. And so, yeah, it was fun. And I didn't get enough stuff done. So I'm behind. Anyway, so today we're doing a Q&A. So for those of you who have not done Q&As before, well, first of all, make sure you're in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can be in the live chat if you want to ask questions. Then post your questions. If you want a question to be prioritized, you can do a super chat, which is a small donation to the channel or whatever you decide to do. So your chat moves to the top of the queue. So we've been doing some interesting topics lately. Last week was anaphylaxis, and clearing out all those tabs to put them in our research database was one of the reasons I was late today. We had to save all those because we have quite the research database of stuff that we can go back and find. So what we're going to do today, before the questions start, you can post them. The order is important, so the sooner you post them, the higher in the queue you are. So go ahead and post your questions or your super chats. But I decided I'm going to go over a testimonial here real quick, and I'm going to go over an older study. I've probably been over this before, but I want to go over it again because it shows, for those people who insist that eggs are good for them, it shows that lecithin, phosphatidylcholine, which is the biggest source of it's in eggs, makes people at lower doses of vitamin A toxicity, it makes their symptoms worse. It did this in animals. And other things that people are consuming that they think are health foods or health supplements, that at the same dose of vitamin A made vitamin A toxicity symptoms worse, significantly worse. So I'm going to cover that again, just as a reminder. For those who think they know better, the research is there saying maybe you don't. Okay. Here's a fun update too. Now, the website will not be mentioned, but we are now entering the stage, folks, where people are buying website domains in my name and then redirecting them to their own forums, which is kind of funny because it means that the war against me is escalating. The ideas go through these 3 or 4 stages before it's accepted as truth. Well, we're in the aggressive retaliation now and the manipulative lying stage. I'm not going to say the website because there's just no point to it. I don't want to give them attention. They're giving me attention. See, the funny thing is, when you don't know about the Streisand effect, right? The Streisand effect is saying, don't look over here. Don't, just whatever you do, don't look over here. What does everybody want to look at? We talked about this with ivermectin. Don't take this. Don't go get it. Definitely don't go do it. And then what does one side of the aisle go do? They all start popping it like candy, thinking that they found something that has been held back from them. Ooh, the pharma cartel was really hiding this wonderful substance from us. But do you realize if they didn't want you to have it, they'd simply stop making it? And then people go, but they don't make any profit. And I go, their goals for you are bigger than just profit. And if you don't understand that, I think you need to spend some more time questioning and being skeptical and realizing that they are not out for you. If the pharma cartel made something that was healthy, they'd stop making it. It's as simple as that. They don't need profit. They make plenty of money. You want to know the funny thing about Merck, who makes a lot of ivermectin and fenbendazole that everybody's talking about as the next cure for cancer? If they could cure cancer, they'd take it off the market. Oh, they're generics. They don't make any money. Oh, they're not going to make any money, and they're going to cure it, and they're going to crush the whole oncology field. Sure. Okay, I believe that. Give me a break. One of their biggest money makers. Yeah, they're going to crush it with 2 little generic meds. But Merck Merck didn't make a jab. And now Merck is a major manufacturer of ivermectin and fenbendazole. And so they're going to. Do you actually think pharma would make something they don't make money on? Do people actually think this? Well, they don't make a lot of money. They don't have to make a lot of money when they sell millions or billions of pills of it. Jeez. So anyway, let's get into this testimonial. Joe, we can go show that screen. Okay, so this is from a person. I scrolled down, so I'm not showing her name, but she posted this in the Love Your Liver network under her name, and I just decided to keep her. I decided to keep her name out of it because I don't need the immature, small-minded, very obviously toxically angry people going after my people. You can come after me all you want. I can handle it. But my people know I'm not going to let you go after them if I can avoid it. So anyway, here we go. She titled it "Faster Recovery Times and More Resiliency." Now, I want you to see here, this person has been doing the low vitamin A diet with me since she started. When she came to me, she was extremely sensitive to supplements. She was extremely sensitive to everything. And most people who get in that situation never get out of it. Okay? So, let's go. Life happens. Oh, it does. Especially when you were on a construction job site. Wanted to share some recent LYL, that's Love Your Liver, wins for faster recovery times with some issues/injuries I've had over the last few months. Number one, chronic fatigue issues exacerbated by a fall/glass. I'm not sure what that means, but we'll go through it. This whole year, I've been pushing it really hard, burning the candle at both ends. Late to bed, early to rise with an average of 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. This is not good. So we all know this, right? But we're trying to rebuild ourselves so when life happens, you can manage. But it has seemed necessary in this season of serving as the general contractor for our family house build. Anyhow, after 2 extremely stressful months on the job site, 12 hours a day with 15 to 25 contractors working each day, I got a piece of glass in my foot. That was number A. B, jumped off the back porch over a pile of junk/house drain about 5 to 6 feet and twisted my foot badly. That did it. Besides the injuries that I needed to work through, my body crashed into chronic fatigue stage 3 symptoms. Actually, let me just highlight this. No energy, no driver ambition, tired, lethargic, sleepy, etc. I slowed down, which makes sense, right? People, you don't get to abuse. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. If you abuse it, it's going to catch up with you. Like, we're not making people invincible here. We're giving you back the ability to live life the way you should be able to. And yes, if you abuse it, you pay the price. Okay. I slowed down my pace dramatically, taking 1 to 2 naps a day for about 3 to 4 weeks. Because of the glass in my foot, I started soaking my foot in water with magnesium to try to get the glass out. I noticed that my need for naps started waning, as in going down, i.e. only 1 nap a day needed instead of 2. After several weeks of soaking, I got the glass out, praise God. Here, about 2 months after the crash, my energy levels have returned mostly to normal except for the occasional need for a nap. I've also been able to mostly reorient my schedule so that I'm getting between 6 to 8 or even sometimes even 9 hours of sleep. So folks, when you know you're doing, just like she did here, when you know you're doing something that isn't healthy for you, yes, number one, you may have to go through it. Number two, you should be working on fixing the cause of why you're not able to do healthy things. I'm working on these things for myself right now. We all have to do it. Life happens. Chronic fatigue issues are fading. And since chronic fatigue issues were the very first reason I connected with Dr. Smith back in 2015, I was really relieved that God healed this so quickly. I didn't lapse back into my previous years and years of sickness. So here's the thing. I want to make a statement about this. I use a lot of car analogies. You're a lot like a car. You were new once. Like, you know how babies and little kids, that's usually the healthiest people are in their life. That's when the car is newest. And as you drive the car through life and you do things that are not necessarily healthy, college, experimentation, eating garbage food, taking toxic supplements, taking toxic medications, whether you were, given them as a child and you had no choice, or whether you made bad choices as an adult, or whether you had to do it to live, like to survive something. Okay, it doesn't really matter how it happened. The car gets old. It gets worn down. Parts in it get worn. Now, we, being a living being, we can heal a lot of this stuff. You can restore a car, right? You can restore a car and make it close to new, but it's probably going to have those little squeaks, and the body is not as tight anymore. So you drive and you can feel the little shake or the little rattle or the squeaking, and it's never going to be a new car again. It's just not. So then certain cars have certain patterns, like certain things wear out or break in cars faster than others. So if you do things to that car that kind of attack the weak points of the car, you can have the same problem come back. Now, let's say it's your car. You know it better than anybody. So if you start seeing the same problems pop up, chronic fatigue in this case, as you've learned, you've already, most of the time, she'd fixed it. But if you start abusing it, the old problems can return. And then the good thing is you notice them and then you go, oh, we got to fix this right away because this is unacceptable. And you actually become more sensitive to them in a way because your tolerance of them is less. It's not that you couldn't take it. She could take it. She used to have chronic fatigue. She obviously didn't when she's sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night and then working all day, organizing all these contractors. Okay. She already said we got rid of the chronic fatigue, but it could come back when the wrong things are done. The old car problems can come back. This is where when people do this and they go, well, if I get my vitamin A levels down and I get rid of all my health problems, can I go and eat vitamin A again? Well, first of all, you can't avoid it completely. But if you wanted the same problems back, you can always go back and create the same problems. Nobody's going to stop you. You could get an alcoholic off of alcohol for 20 years, and then they go back and they start drinking again, and they might kill themselves in a week. This is what druggies who go back to drugs and alcohol after a long part of not having taken it, they often go and die very quickly when they get back on the bad habit. So that's just an example of there's a certain toxicity thing of the old car, the damage that never goes away. So if you are doing this and all of a sudden you see old problems creeping up again, you should be looking at, am I doing the wrong things for my health? Could I make better choices? Maybe you can't. Maybe you just have to go through it and just suck it up and be like, well, there's an ending in 3 months. I know this part, we're going to move out of this moldy house in 3 months, let's say. Okay, well then you just got to figure out what to do in the meantime. Right? Or you got mercury fillings in your mouth and you just got to wait until you can afford to get them out of your mouth so you're not poisoning yourself every day. This is life. Do the best you can. And she did. She noticed the problem and then she started taking attempts to fix it. But it was the injury, the glass in the foot and the twisting her foot that made her realize, oops, something has to change. Okay. So now let's go back into this. Head injury. I have a history of traumatic brain injury that's serious, okay, and concussion symptoms over the last 5 or 6 years. It started with one large injury, and for a while there, even the tiniest bumps would trigger large reactions with concussion symptoms, headaches, misspoken words, dizziness, etc. On this program, they have gradually gotten better, and I want you to know we don't try to fix traumatic brain injury. If we fix you and make you less toxic and less deficient, and you have less bile in your blood, your body starts fixing things. I don't know how to fix a traumatic brain injury. Your body does. We just help you become healthier, and then your body does it. So whenever, if all you folks, you're like, you want to send me an email and say, can you fix this? Or what do you do for this? I don't have protocols. We've never had protocols. Protocols are for people who don't think. We teach you how to fix yourself. So your body fixes itself. So the creator can fix your stuff through this wonderful body we were given. You just have to help get everything out of the way. Okay? So anyway, with small bumps not causing any concussion symptoms at all. So she improved her resilience to bumps on her head. Okay? A few weeks ago, though, I had a large head injury again. The back hatch of a car closed on my head quite hard. I immediately felt very bad, but with arnica and Rescue Remedy helped a little. Rescue Remedy, I highly recommend it. Once I had a glass of charcoal water, though, that made me feel significantly better, and I was able to be okay for the rest of the day. We were out at an event. Gosh, who talks about charcoal all the time? Why would charcoal, let me take an aside here. Why would drinking charcoal doesn't get into your bloodstream. So how could charcoal affect your mental symptoms? Those of you who understand toxic bile theory understand exactly how. Charcoal in your gut adsorbs toxic bile and all the toxic stuff that's in it. Copper, manganese. Oh, copper and manganese have both been shown to cause neurotoxicity. Wow, it'd be weird if we soaked that up in the gut and you pooped it out instead of reabsorbing it into your brain, right? So, and then when you are under stress, you trigger bile dumps. So if you trigger a bile dump of all these toxins and they start leaking into your system. Oh, and Joe, if you aren't familiar with toxic bile theory, you need to go watch the live streams on this channel, number 53 and or number 71. That goes over the basics of this. But this is how charcoal, which is not absorbed into your bloodstream, it does not penetrate into your bloodstream, can affect neurological symptoms when taken soon after, because you dump the bile and whatever you can soak up out of your gut doesn't leak into your bloodstream. Okay, that's how this works. We have mechanisms here for all sorts of your health issues that nobody else could explain. Once arriving home, I started icing and went to bed early. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night feeling the dizziest I had ever felt in all these years of head injuries. I seriously couldn't sit, let alone stand upright, but had to hold onto the walls, doors, /counters, /people just to navigate. I also had very bad nausea and thought I was going to lose it. It was pretty scary, as nausea is a very bad sign for concussions and can warrant something pretty serious. You know, I said, like, once the car is old, she re-damaged. You know, head injuries, as you continue to do them, they don't get easier and better. This is just like, you know, damaging the same ankle again. You know, you twist the same ankle over and over and over and over and over again. You have to really rehab it. Okay, so anyway, it's a very bad sign for concussions and can warrant something pretty serious. I also had a horrible, horrible headache. My husband got me ice and I got back to sleep. Somewhere in there, I can't remember exactly when, I started putting my newly acquired Nutrition Detective Magnesium lotion on my neck. It's good stuff. And face. I stayed home from church the next day and stayed in bed. By Monday, I was up walking around, but headaches and dizziness was less intense. By Tuesday, it was 90% better. And by Wednesday, a mere 5 days after the injury, I felt completely normal. Now, let's compare that to how she used to feel. Folks, it usually takes 6 weeks to recovery from a head injury in her past. And it has taken me 6 weeks long to heal before, with misspoken words, memory issues, etc. This time, though, it was 5 days. I didn't have any brain or memory problems at all, even with a greater head injury. Praise the Lord. I don't treat head injuries. This is the root cause stuff. We are fixing the root cause of your illnesses. And then your body can fix all this stuff even faster. So it's really crazy, all the haters out there who are like against this, and they're trying to be like, just imagine, isn't this the internet? What drug do I take for this symptom? What supplement do I take for this symptom? What supplement do I take to fix my liver, Dr. Smith? None. You avoid poisons. You facilitate the removal of stored poisons from your liver, and you give your body the minerals, essential nutrients, and nicotinic acid that it needs to heal. That's what you do. That is what we do. I mean, in a way, I'm going to tell you to stop asking me if I can treat a certain condition. I can make you healthier, which means your body can treat the condition. That is how this works. This is why nothing else out there is working except temporarily. It's because they're not addressing the root cause. And anybody who brings up the root cause as being bioavailable copper, just leave now. You're poisoning yourself. Just go poison yourself, figure it out when you get sick and you can't figure out what to do, and more copper makes you worse, and stopping copper still doesn't make you better. You've poisoned your liver with a fraudulent concept. If you have not seen the research on how toxic copper is on everything, and you haven't gone through my live streams here on how toxic copper is, you should, because you've been duped and they're poisoning you. All this nonsense about copper cups on Twitter and stuff. Oh my gosh. Really? Enjoy that. Enjoy your neurological degeneration. And then the same people will be like, but don't drink out of aluminum. Well, that's true. Don't drink out of aluminum, but don't drink out of copper either. Okay. So we're back to the next part. Fall and badly sprained foot. Back on the job site again. Never knew how dangerous this contractor stuff is. I had the next injury again to my right foot. Someone had moved the expected ramp. I was texting a contractor, so I didn't see that the ramp wasn't there. I stepped off the foot-high porch and twisted my foot badly, falling completely to the ground. I laid there for a moment and realized my foot is what had the problem. When I sat up, I saw that it could have been much worse. Piles of rock and chicken wire were inches from where my head landed. Plus, the area where I landed was cushioned with soft dirt and leaves. Thank you, God. Anyhow, I got up and hobbled around, limping badly through the rest of the day. Once returning home, my mother-in-law nurse assessed my foot and didn't think that it was broken. We decided to do a trial of care, or as they say, what is it? Watch and wait, right? I mean, you can also treat in there and treat it as a bad sprain. Her professional counsel was that it would take 2 weeks to recover. And I've had ankle sprains. Yeah, they suck. Now my ankles are bulletproof because I do specific exercises where I'm putting my ankle in compromised positions and I train it. So her professional counsel was that it would take 2 weeks to recover. Nutrition Detective Magnesium Lotion to the rescue again. I slathered it on the foot multiple times a day. That's first night. I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't walk at all. My husband graciously helped me and then picked up crutches for me in the morning. I was on crutches for 2 days, I think. We wrapped the foot as much as we could, plus did magnesium lotion and ice. By the morning of the third day, I was back on the job site again, limping a little, but no crutches needed. By the fourth day, totally back to normal. God is good. Folks, if you have injuries that are laying you up for weeks and weeks and weeks, it's not necessarily that the injury was so bad. It's that your healing sucks because you're full of toxic bile and toxic stuff and you're lacking nutrients. That's why. Like when you say my immune system's bad, no, you're toxic and you're deficient. Your immune system is a cleanup crew. If your immune system is overworked, it's because it's cleaning up too many toxins. Okay. Number 4, greater resiliency. A year ago, I had to use the restroom every 20 to 30 minutes. Not saying that it is great, but I can now go 6 to 8 hours without needing to use the restroom. This is very helpful on a construction site. Additionally, there have been days when breakfast was small, no snacks were on site, and lunch ended up being 3 to 4 hours later than planned, 6 to 8 hours of fasting. Again, this is not sustainable or necessarily good, but I have been able to push through without blood sugar issues and way more stamina than I had ever dreamed. More frequently, I am able to have a simple breakfast of oats, a very simple lunch of bread, and then have a large dinner with protein, carbs, etc. Years ago, I couldn't go for more than a few hours without food and couldn't handle having any food without protein accompanying it. I'm amazed at all God has done in making me more resilient in my calling. Hope these stories encourage you. I've been on the program since the beginning, so I think that is now 5.5 years in. And yes, Garrett Smith, you are welcome to use these on the live stream if you want, if you would like. So, folks, this person has been with me since 2015. So 5.5 years, 2024 minus 5.5 years is like, it was what, 2000, was it 2018 I started doing this? Maybe September of 2018, I think, or 2019. I don't know the math in my head. Not right now. Anyway, she was with, so this woman was with me before I started realizing that vitamin A was toxic. She stuck with me. I figured out the next thing, because one of the things, those of you who have been with me a long time, you see I keep figuring out things along the way. Nicotinic acid, flush niacin, was the recent thing that I figured out and added to the program with the help of Kelsey Kenny, being very gracious and sticking to her guns, knowing that I would come around, and she presented it to me in a way that I understood it and it made sense. And it was just another psyop by the mainstream, which Kelsey and I are going to be working on. Well, it's mainly going to be Kelsey's video, but it's going to be on this channel. We're working on, if you've heard about that new niacin study where they're like, niacin causes heart disease to go up. Yeah, niacinamide does. We'll show that it's exactly niacinamide, the very stuff I tell you not to take, that Kelsey tells you not to take, the very stuff that they fortify your bread with, the flour in your bread. When it says niacin, they're putting niacinamide, the very stuff that's in your multi, the very stuff that's in your B complex, the very stuff that's in your big combination supplements. They don't use flesh niacin in this. They use niacinamide. And now they come out saying, oops, but they don't say niacinamide in the study. They just say niacin, 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 niacin. There's a huge difference. And if you don't know the difference, you're going to pay the price. We have huge articles in the Love Your Liver program written by Kelsey and a couple by me about flesh niacin, nicotinic acid, and how to use it to help yourself detox. But the other thing you have to remember, for those of you who are going to run out and try it and you didn't join the Love Your Liver program, is anything you use to push detox can push detox too hard and give you other symptoms, or it can worsen your symptoms. And then if you take too much nicotinic acid without buffering it, you can cause yourself problems. We have the buffering information on the website. Funny thing, it's showing up on other websites now. So yeah, so we can help you with this. But it's propaganda. It's a smear campaign. And flush niacin does not turn into the exact same metabolic byproducts or waste products that they talk about in the study that niacinamide does. I have a great little diagram that I'll show, or that Kelsey will probably use in the presentation. I don't want to steal her thunder any more than I might have already. But just know, yes, people are posting that niacin study everywhere, and it's garbage. Well, I mean, it's true. It's true, but they don't say niacinamide is the problem. They just try to smear niacin. So this is why I'm very, very, very clear about nicotinic acid or flesh niacin. If it's not nicotinic acid or flesh niacin, toss it. Very simple. Okay, so now I wanted to go into this other paper. Joe, you can show it. So this is an article on my old research forum. Let me put the link in the chat. Let me find the chat again. There it is. Oh, come on. I need this to move up. Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Now, this should be linked in the Sci-Hub in the article, or maybe I even put the PDF at the bottom. So, this is the paper. You can find it on Sci-Hub if you search for this title. Potentiating, that means strengthening, increasing. Potentiating effects of materials of plant and animal origin on symptoms of hypervitaminosis A in the rat. So that's vitamin A toxicity. Potentiating, worsening, strengthening, increasing effects of materials of plant and animal origin on symptoms of hypervitamin A toxicity in the rat. Okay? So this is the list of things that they found. So what they did was they had rats that they gave like straight up tons of vitamin A toxicity to. Like they just messed them up and they saw their symptoms. Okay? Then they had two other groups of rats that were given like a moderate dose of vitamin A. And then they split that group of rats in half, and then they either gave They gave one group these other things, these things of plant and animal origin, and the other group didn't get it. So the group that didn't get these extra things didn't have. So what sorry, let me back up. The groups that got the straight up mega dosing of vitamin A toxicity versus the rats that got like the moderate dose that wasn't necessarily a vitamin A toxicity dose, but they got these things of plant and animal origin, they were just as bad. Okay, so you egg folks should listen to this. It's going to end badly. So what did they give these rats? No, they gave each one of these at one at a time. They didn't give all of them. Okay, so alfalfa meal, right? That's just ground up alfalfa, like alfalfa powder in your green drink powders. Oh, oops, dried alfalfa juice. So you might see alfalfa powder in a green drink. That's the cheap stuff. Cheap. You can poison yourself cheaply or expensively, your choice. And then dried alfalfa juice, when a lot of these green drink companies, they like to brag that they use juice powder instead of whole meal plant powder. So you can pay, yeah, like I said, you can pay more to poison yourself. Alfalfa residue. So that's probably, as I say here, this was probably the leftovers from juicing the alfalfa. So they had the whole alfalfa they ground up, caused problems. The alfalfa juice powder, dried juice, caused problems. The residue of the alfalfa, the leftover from juicing, also caused problems. Defatted alfalfa. So the carotenoids, the plant vitamin A would likely be in the fat, right? Carotenoids, fat soluble. So even then, when they defatted the alfalfa, it still made the vitamin A toxicity worse. Maybe you should stop doing green drinks and dark green leafy vegetables thinking that they're good for you. Oreomycin HCl, this is an antibiotic. Wow, an antibiotic made vitamin A toxicity worse. Imagine medications. So folks, when you're like, I have people do this all the time. Well, I've never taken tons of vitamin A. Do you have to? You can simply damage the liver. Think of it as, you might be like, well, I'm not running the shower really full blast. I'm only running it half blast. But then you look at the drain and your drain is full of hair and it's not draining and you're backing up water. Think of your liver that gets damaged with medications or jabs or whatever you're exposed to. And then the drain starts running slower. So it doesn't really matter that you're not taking that much in if you cannot clear it fast enough. Hopefully this makes sense. Okay, let's just look at all these grasses. Let's drink wheatgrass and let's do all these grasses because they're young and tender and no. So look at all the grasses that made vitamin A toxicity worse. Oat grass, dehydrated ryegrass, orchard grass, wheat grass, fescue grass. I believe that's a weed. So all these grasses. So basically you can know that if you're trying to do these green drinks, you're making your vitamin A toxicity situation worse. That's what the research shows. Now let's go into the liver. Oh, for you liver lovers. Oh, it's bad news for you. So desiccated or dried liver. What do they sell liver supplements as? Oh, desiccated liver. Water insoluble liver residue. So this would be like, if it's not soluble in water, it's probably fat soluble. So this would be where the fat soluble toxins are. Like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, forever chemicals, all that stuff. Then we have water-soluble liver concentrate. Wait, water-soluble? But vitamin A is fat-soluble. Well, retinoic acid, the most toxic form of vitamin A, is said to be water-soluble. So we have dried liver, water-insoluble liver residue, and water-soluble liver concentrate. So it looks like pretty much they juiced liver. They juiced liver, they got the water-soluble liver concentrate, and then they got the water-insoluble liver residue. And that was the leftovers from juicing. And then even the dried liver, where they took the water out of it, was still toxic. Okay. Now, a product derived from fermentation sources. Don't know what it is. But fermentation Fermentation, you have to think about this, folks. Culturing things, fermenting things is controlled degradation. It is controlled rotting. And then you'll have people on one hand saying, you got to eat your food as fresh as possible. And then they go, oh, and I'm going to eat fermented or cultured foods. And you go, but that's controlled rotting. Which is it? Is the fresh food best? Or is the controlled rotting food best? Yes, you do need good gut bacteria, but your gut bacteria problems are mostly caused by your toxic bile, killing the good stuff and supporting the bad stuff, and then potentially other medications and other things you've done. That's what messed up your gut biome. Tuna solubles and fish solubles. I'm assuming they mean water soluble. So tuna and fish made vitamin A toxicity worse. What do we not eat on the program? Fish. So, yeah. Yeast. Oh, brewer's yeast is so healthy. It's got all the vitamins in it. No, don't eat yeast or fungus. We don't do mushrooms on the program. We don't eat yeast. Don't. It makes vitamin A toxicity worse. DPPD, I'm not quite sure what that is. Palm kernel meal. Well, palm kernel meal, might that come from red? The same stuff that makes red palm oil, the highest source of carotenoids and vitamin E, tocotrienols, and tocopherols, fat storable alcohols out there. Okay. Coconut cake. Those who are in the program know I'm not a big fan of coconut. I think the coconut fad is another scam to poison you, just like the soy fad was. Now they just sell you coconut in every shape and form, just like they did with soy. The retinol ester, the storage form of vitamin A that is the most commonly found, like 60-something% in humans, is retinol palmitate. That's what they use in supplements. What is coconut high in? When the parts of coconut that have fat, palmitic acid, which is what you bind to vitamin A to form retinol palmitate. Wow, so coconut could store more vitamin A in your liver and therefore make you more toxic. There's a reason we avoid these things, folks. I figured these things out over time, and this helps. This just shows that that's how it works. Okay, acetone extracted herring roe, fish eggs. Fish eggs are super high in vitamin A. They're bright red, like when you think of like the salmon roe. Don't eat fish eggs. Oh, here we go. Soybean lecithin, phosphatidylcholine. There are studies. This is phosphatidylcholine is the exact same chemical compound that is found in eggs. So soybean lecithin, when it's isolated, is phosphatidylcholine, and egg lecithin is phosphatidylcholine. And in my giant Twitter eggs thread, I show that they could basically say how much phosphatidylcholine is in your blood, how much choline is in your blood, which would come from phosphatidylcholine. How much choline is in your blood is basically completely correlating to how many eggs a person eats. Some people feel amazing on soybean lecithin, and some people feel absolutely horrible as soon as they start taking it. Why? Well, we know that it's right here showing that it makes vitamin A toxicity worse, but how could it make somebody feel better? You feel worse when you have them. If you don't know, your body takes vitamin A, retinol, one of the forms of it, the fat storable alcohol form of retinol, and it binds it to fatty acid esters, free fatty acid esters in your blood. Palmitic acid would be one that you can get from coconut. Okay. It binds them together via an enzyme called LRAT, L-R-A-T. Lecithin retinyl acyl transferase. That is how you store vitamin A in your liver. You need free fatty acids and you need phosphatidylcholine, lecithin. How could somebody feel better by putting more lecithin in their system? Well, let me explain. Most of your toxicity symptoms are from the toxins floating around in your bloodstream. They got there through your toxic leaky bile. One of the ways you could potentially feel better would be to like take some lecithin, whether it's eggs, whether it's soybean lecithin, whether it's sunflower lecithin, doesn't matter. It's the same chemical compound. Get over the idea that natural chemicals are always better than synthetic chemicals. It's called the appeal to nature fallacy, and it's a terribly, terribly misguiding thing to do. If you have the same chemical in a food, the exact same chemical, versus a synthetic chemical that is the exact same chemical, they do the exact same thing. Okay? They don't do different things. Science discovered the chemical using the exact same analysis methods that they're then making the chemical with. So they're saying, this is what we found in food. We used this science to say it. This is what we made in the lab. It's exactly the same structure. It's the same thing. It's not different. If you don't believe that those do the same thing, you're basically saying science is BS. But how would you even know that that thing existed in food if the scientists didn't use that analysis thing to find it in the first place? You understand? It's like when people say the sun is good for you, and then they don't realize that almost all of the evidence where they say that the sun is good for you was done with ultraviolet lamps. And then they're like, don't do ultraviolet lamps, it's bad for you. And then you go, but that's how they justified saying the sun is good for you. How are you going to say that that's bad when all the research you're basing the sun being good for you on is based on lamps? So anyway, how could it make you feel better? Well, let's say you had plenty of free fatty acid esters and other fat storable toxins in your bloodstream. So you have plenty of toxins and plenty of free fatty acids. But let's say you didn't have enough lecithin to run the enzyme to store them. So you get enough lecithin, you start putting them all together, piece A with piece B connected by the choline, shove it in the liver. You have now reduced the amount of fat-soluble toxins in your blood. So you feel better. Egg cells, you should be listening. And then you store it in the liver. And then eventually you run out of storage area. Kind of like you copper people. You're storing all that copper in your liver. And then when you run out of storage in your liver and you can't put it in there anymore, it starts building up in your blood. And now your liver's overflowing and your blood is rising and you're wondering why. And then let's say you start eating more eggs. You're like, well, I obviously need more eggs. And you start eating more eggs and you feel worse. Or you start shoving more copper in your cake hole and you start feeling worse and you go, oh, I definitely don't want to do that. But this doesn't make sense because everybody tells me that these are good for me. And then you decide, well, maybe I'll try not eating them. Your liver's already overflowing. Not eating them doesn't just make things go away, especially if, let's say, you were doing vitamin A in other foods and you just take out the eggs. Like once you get a cut, right? You got like a cut and you've got a scab. How much picking of the scab does it take to keep the cut there forever? Very little picking. Very little. If you keep putting vitamin A in, let's say you take out some big sources, but you keep putting in enough to keep picking the scab, the problem doesn't go away. It only gets worse. And then if you're really toxic, your detox system is even slower. The more toxic you get, the slower your detox system runs. And then it becomes really, really hard to get out. And then people wonder, why do we have people avoid so many things? Because that's how we get people better. That's why we get people better. That is the root of our success. So, fish solubles. Again, we have fish showing up again. We have fish Fish solubles. Oh, there it was. I put it twice. Sorry. Tuna and fish solubles and fish eggs. We don't do fish. If you don't trust the ocean water, you shouldn't be trusting the fish and the shellfish that are swimming around in it, marinating it, breathing it. Oh, while we're on, let me see if I can find the let me see. Pigs. It was shellfish, China, pig waste. Yeah. Here we go. Joe, you can show this. So when I tell you, especially for those of you who think shellfish is your savior, like I get my zinc from oysters or what, you get plenty of copper too. What do you think eats the fish crap in the ocean? What do you Shellfish eat the crap in the ocean. That's why they can raise them on pig waste. They eat crap. If you are what you eat, then you are what you eat eats. If you would like to be made of crap, go ahead. Fish and shellfish are not safe these days long term. I don't care what people were doing 100 years ago or even 50 years ago. I don't care. You don't live in their world. If you want to delude yourself and be like, well, what worked in the past can obviously work today, go ahead, try it. Double down, prove me wrong. Eat even more. Eat tons of pig, eat tons of shellfish. Eat tons of eggs. Go prove me wrong. Come back in 5 years. We'll see who's still here. So anyway, that's what we got. So I want to get to the questions now. But yeah, don't eat shellfish. Crappy choice to eat. Okay, so here we have Gabriel. Thank you for the super chat, Gabriel. Love your liver member. 4 years going strong. Serum retinol 0. Many improvements. However, I have eczema patches that recently started showing up. Is this common? I assume it's deeper detox. No pain or itching. Okay. Gabriel, Joe, if you see Gabriel's responses to this, can you post them? Because I'm gonna bring up some stuff here. In the last couple weeks, folks, those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program understand that you've probably read my article on space weather. Space weather is a very, very, very real thing. It is things like solar flares and geomagnetic storms and other things of this nature. Even the full moon. Most people know, if they actually pay attention, that they often don't sleep well at a full moon, or they don't. Sometimes even people notice they don't sleep well in a new moon. The space weather has been crazy for about the last 4 weeks now. I think over this weekend, one day of the weekend, there was 2 X flares, 2 X-class flares. And if you don't know what X-class flares are, that's about as big as they get. So a lot of people, those of you who are in the chat right now, if you want to concur with this, or if you are watching this video later, we had lots of people who had aggravations in these last 4 weeks. I had a seriously strong retracing this last weekend. We often see, for those of you who take flush niacin or nicotinic acid, we often see during space weather, people have stronger flushes. Or they flush when they didn't used to flush at all. So if any of you are noticing these patterns and you're watching this later, so this is what, February 27th. So especially in the last 2 weeks, but it's been going back like 4 weeks now, the solar flares and the space weather has been bonkers. And so a lot of your symptoms, you may have been doing very, very well. And all of a sudden you're like, why is this coming back? What am I doing wrong? I don't get it. What do I need to change something? Here's the good and bad news. I'm like one of the few people out there talking about space weather and how it really affects people. I do believe it causes you to dump more bile. Absolutely. That's how it makes all these symptoms worse. And if you go and you look on Suspicious Observers, Yeah, so Gabriel says it's been in the last 3 to 4 weeks, so the timing is right, and lots of retracements or retracing in the last 2 weeks. Yes. People can say I just make this stuff up, but then for those of you who are here and you really love this, I always love when people are like, oh my gosh, Dr. Smith, what you've described here in my past or in recent is like dead on. Like I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I love doing this for people because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. Like stuff has been not good. And how does this happen? I mean, if, whatever the moon is, whatever the sun is, I'm not getting into that. I don't know. But do I believe the stories that NASA tells me? No, I don't. But what I can say is we can obviously observe that the moon has something to do with the tides. Okay, we can observe that. So if this, whatever it is up there, is strong enough to move the ocean, it could probably affect the flow of things inside your body, right? If solar flares are supposedly strong enough that if one is aimed right at the earth just right, and it pops off, and it could basically fry every electronic on the earth, do you think it could make you feel bad? Maybe a little. Okay, this should make sense. Like if it can fry electronics and we are electromagnetic creatures, it could affect how things work in us. And if you don't think that's true, I'm sorry. This is not the place for you. You can go find your information somewhere. But Gabriel, yes, this is exactly what we're seeing. I talk to people regularly, and I kind of do this to make sure I'm not going a little crazy. But I'll often talk to people and be like, "How you been feeling this week?" And I don't set it up with anything, and I just let them tell me, and I go, "Okay, this is got to be something bigger. This is like space weather, and we'll see the patterns." So for those of you who are in the Love Your Liver program, if you want to go, I'm sure Hope's already telling people about the space weather, but it's been nasty. It's going away right now. So Gabriel, if you were to notice that maybe yesterday and today things are starting to ease up, that will just fit the pattern of the space weather. Yeah. So with the space weather things, I just tell people, people want to know from me, how do I fix it? How do I make this go away? I don't know. I cannot change how the sun affects all of humanity on the planet. I cannot change how the moon affects all of humanity on the planet. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I appreciate that you assume that I could figure this out, especially with that sign behind me right there. Oh, it's over here. It's over here. I don't know. It's over here. There it is. The fixer of everything sign. Sorry, I got the flip screen messing me up. So anyway, when space weather happens, it's bad. This is part of the reason why, like maybe you've noticed tons of people having road rage, tons of people just being general a-holes. Oh yeah, Trusty said yesterday was my worst day. Well, is Rusty, is it getting better today? Is it better overall today? That would be an important. So but when this fades, this is the thing. Space weather is very, very confusing because if you don't watch it, Space Weather Live is a free app that Space Weather, I think it's either all one word or it's Space Weather as one word and then live. You can find it on Droid and Apple. And what I do is I just turn on all the notifications because I want to know when it happens. So when you start to watch it a little bit, you can start to. So the funny thing is, like, I will actually start to get a little symptomatic about a half hour before the alert for a solar flare hits. So that also makes me think, people will go like, but the sun, it takes days for that to reach the earth. And I go, I honestly don't know where the sun is. And I don't just believe people saying it's millions and millions and millions of miles away. I just don't believe you. And then when I can get affected consistently within a short time before I know the flare hits, so it's not placebo. I just don't believe the stories they tell us. I'll put it that way. It's all stories. Like I haven't gone out in a spaceship and visited the moon or the sun to know how far away they are. Kind of like Joe Rogan was like, I wasn't there for when the dinosaurs were around. And I go, yeah, I wasn't. So I don't know if they were real, if they're just fossils or faked. I don't know. I just don't know. That it's an easy thing to just say, I don't know. If you want to stand on behind something, you may or may not be right. But like with vitamin A as a toxin, I'm pretty damn sure that we're good on that. And Gabriel was down to 0 vitamin A, but that 0 vitamin A in the blood doesn't mean 0 in the liver. This has been shown over and over in studies. So anyway, Gabriel, when these things happen, for those of you who have been having stuff like this, just do your best to manage it. It's gonna pass, but I actually think, for those out there who think maybe we're in the end times or the fourth turning or whatever you choose to call it, Kali Yuga, I don't care. We're coming towards the completion of whatever you want to call it, a cycle or whatever. And I would absolutely assume that increased space weather goes along with this. And that's why everybody kind of goes bonkers towards the end. And they don't know why. You don't have to believe it, but you can see it in everybody out there. I don't think if the space weather was not as bad as it has been and it's been growing, I don't think everybody would be so crazy right now. So, but then they stoke the fire with their propaganda. So they get you more agitated. So you're in this agitated state, and then they stoke it more. So John Dickinson with a question. Lymph massage / other lymph interventions. Thoughts? Okay. The best thing that you can do, so when you think of lymph massage or other lymph interventions, should we as humans need these things? No, we shouldn't need them, right? We weren't designed knowing how to massage lymph. The greatest lymphatic mover that anyone can do is moving your body. Your muscles squeeze the lymph glands to move things around, and then gravity, just like when you hear about people on rebounders. Okay, so let me talk about rebounders for a second, or a little trampoline. What are they doing? It's exercise, but you are adding the force, the added force of gravity that maybe so think of rebounding is, and I'm not trying to downplay it, because some of you have gotten amazing results with rebounding. Okay. It's a form of exercise that people, when they're very, very sick, can do. Right? You're just you don't have to jump on the trampoline. You're just bouncing on it. And that change in the forces, like when you hit the bottom of the what do you call the middle thing? The floor of the trampoline, when it comes down and then it rebounds up, that force shift, that direction shift pulls on the lymph fluid, and it's moving it in your lymphatic system. So is it very, very good? Is it doable for a lot of people who are very, very sick? Sure. Should that be your own? Could it be your only exercise as you're getting better? Sure. But what we've seen with people is you're going to want higher levels of exercise, more intense exercise as you get better, because your body's like, okay, that was baby stuff. Like that was when we were really, really sick. Now let's go for a walk. Now let's go hiking. Now let's go to the gym. Now let's start doing some push-ups. Like your body wants to exercise. When we are sick or toxic, our body often doesn't want to exercise. Why is that? Because Too much or too strong physical activity will cause you to dump bile. You then leak the bile into your bloodstream and you feel wiped out or like a truck hit you. Okay, right? It's a lot like people with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome will often say that they need to exercise to feel better, but also if they overdo the exercise, it's like a truck hit them, right? So John is saying with chronic fatigue syndrome, I can hardly move my body no matter how much I'd like to. Trying to restart a light weekly swim since the new year, very little full body movement otherwise. Post-exertional malaise, that's the bile dump. That is the leftovers of the bile dump. So what we would be doing, obviously, John, you want to watch the inputs, the variables that you're doing, whether it's supplements or foods or exercise or sun exposure or heat or whatever that you're doing, to find out what you tolerate and what you don't. That's a really important place to start. Like, what triggers you feeling bad, or what amount of it triggers you feeling bad. Now, if you're at the point where you're really sick and you're going, can I do lymph massage or whatever, and you want to try it? Sure, I would definitely go in and tell them, like, start slow, start low and slow kind of thing. Don't jump in and just give me the biggest treatment ever, because if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough, right? If you want to start at the high level, if you go in the gym and you pick up the heaviest weight in there and you hurt yourself, everybody in the gym would look at you and be like, duh, right? So if you go into the massage therapist, let's say you've got pain in a joint. This is just another example that people do. You got pain somewhere and you're like, oh, just beat the heck out of me. And then they beat the heck out of you and then you feel worse. Everybody will be like, duh, right? So if you're going to if you wanted to do rebounding or something like that, start with 30 seconds, start with a minute, and just kind of, you're just kind of bouncing on it. It's not crazy or anything like that. And then just give it time, right? Like Rebecca, who was the testimonial, she's been with me a long time and she got rid of the chronic fatigue, but yes, she can trigger it again. And yes, she knows how to fix it now. So chronic fatigue syndrome is deep toxicity. So a lot of these things are deep toxicity. So you can't detox deep toxicity too fast, or then you have all the toxicity running around your system. The very thing that causes our problems is the solution to our problems, but we have to do it at the right speed. But yeah, if you figure out lymph things that help, red light therapy might help, but that can still cause a bile dump. Just going outside might help, but going outside and going for a walk, and I don't care how slow the walk is. We deal with the sickest people here, where like a walk to the mailbox might be their exercise for the day. And as they feel better, maybe they take a walk around the block. And then as they feel better, maybe they walk a quarter mile. And there will be people who say walking isn't exercise, walking is transportation. And I do agree with that. But when we have sick people, we have sicker people than at any other point in history, folks. Cancer just keeps going up. Autoimmune diseases keep going up. Sudden deaths just keep going up. We are super toxic. And we have to come out of it. I know everybody who's been really sick for a really long time wants to come out of it as fast as possible. And I respect that, right? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. That famous saying. But that doesn't mean you get to be greedy and impatient and then push things really hard, because remember, the sicker you are, the slower your detox. If you push a bunch of stuff into a bottleneck, it builds up. Like if somebody was like, oh, I'm so dirty, I want to take a really intense shower, and they turn the shower up full blast. Remember that hair in the drain analogy? So then the bottom of the shower fills up extra fast, and then they're leaking water all over their floor. And they're going, oh, well, I guess I got clean in the shower, but now my bathroom has mold in it. You don't want to create one problem while you're trying to solve another one. So we just got to go. But also, I'll tell you guys this, you don't get to find your limits until you bump into them. question is, when you do find your limits, do you recognize it and then back off? Or do you just kind of ignore it and deny it and keep pushing into it? And then I'm not saying this is you, John, but then you come to the Love Your Liver program, or you come to my office hours, or you go wherever, and you're like, I don't feel good. This has been going on there was somebody who did this. I've talked about them before. They just kept eating beans for a year, and they felt worse the whole time. A year. And they didn't figure it out, even though I wrote in there saying, if you feel worse on beans, you don't have to eat them. But they kept doing it. And then they tried to say it was the beans' fault. Come on. You have to listen to your body and adjust. Over time, just like the testimonial, things will get better. You will become more resilient. You will increase your capacity. But if you try to take from the capacity before you have it, it backfires, or it just slows everything down. Like if you push detox really, really hard, this is an important thing, folks. If you push detox really, really hard and you're making yourself feel awful, first of all, it's your fault. It's not the program's fault. It's your fault. So don't go on the internet and blame me because you kept doing it. When everything I write is like, don't overdo this. If you feel like crap, back off. And then they're like, I felt like crap for so long and it's all your fault, Dr. Smith. And I'm like, no, you very straightforwardly didn't follow the instructions. So no, it's not my fault. It's like when you read Amazon reviews and there's user error. They're like, I couldn't get this thing to work. And then somebody's like, well, they didn't plug it in. Real talk here right now. So anyway, lymph stuff can be great. But once you can do pretty normal basic exercise like walking, like when you think about it, a rebounder is just this, right? Well, walking is, it's the same thing, but one might be tolerated and one might not. And the rebounder is known among really, really sick people for helping. So that's where you could start. But like lymph massage would be fine. John's giving some appreciation for that. So you're welcome, John. I hope that helps. And if you want to do skin brushing or other stuff like that, that's fine. But I want you to think about this. What's one of the places your body stores vitamin A? The skin and the subcutaneous fat. So would it make sense that if you were constantly doing skin brushing and brushing off the top layers of skin, you might actually be helping yourself to detox vitamin A and get rid of the dry skin that might be holding in toxic sweat close to you? Does that make sense? You're like increasing the detox through your skin by brushing off the toxic skin. I actually think that when people have dander, so keep that up there. Joe, I just want to finish this. We feed our animals, dogs and cats, tons of vitamin A in their food. Where do we store vitamin A? In our skin. Dogs and cats do too. So if your dog and cat is getting skin problems and shedding skin more, and you're breathing, so pollen full of vitamin A, right? It's yellow, orange. And then you're breathing in cat dander, cat skin, or dog skin, full of vitamin A. Weird that people get allergies to pollen and allergies to dog and cat skin. You think it could be vitamin A in their skin that's getting stuck in their nasal passages? I do. Okay, so Joe was saying, not denying the limits, it is damn hard sometimes. I didn't mean to imply that, John. You know that. My soul wants to move. Yes, good. And on a good day, I can move like a young person for a short amount of time, but then I get hit by a truck a few days after. This does happen. So, John, what I'd suggest you do right now is you really underdo it. I know there's going to be days where you feel good, but that's the day when you need to like ratchet it down and say, okay, I can do this much without the truck hitting me a couple days later. That's all I can help you with is yes. So what we want to see, and John, maybe you can answer this, is as you're doing this, are you getting more of those good days? Are those good days coming more often? Do you feel like you're at a new level on the good days? Like, is it generally improving? It may be slow, but is it generally improving? That's what we're looking for, whether it's frequency, whether it's intensity, whether it's whatever. So if you could answer that, that'd be great. And then we'll get to Ramon's question. So Joe, if you could watch for that. Let me see. Oh, wow. 97 concurrent viewers. We're almost ready to break 100. We were at 6,800 subscribers. So it's getting pretty exciting. No wonder. Okay, so John's saying generally improving, yes, very slowly. I think what'll happen, John, is you're going to get to some point where some toxin or certain other toxins have gotten lowered enough that you're gonna have like a big hump sometime soon. But also remember these last 4 weeks. Okay, this is the weird thing, folks. Space weather. I talk about you dumping more bile. Us generally dumping more bile. It does affect different people differently. Some people are like, I don't ever notice it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I think as people get cleaner, when you do, like, the sicker you are, the thing you have to remember, like, a lot of folks are really, really sick and they feel terrible all the time. So if you were to say, well, did you feel better on this day or worse on this day or better on, they're so deep in feeling bad that it's hard for them to tell, like, when they have a better day or not. And that's very real. And that's, as you get better though, when you don't feel good, you're like, whoa, this is not cool. Something's really not right. And this happens to everybody all of a sudden. You just have bad days sometimes. And now with space weather, you can actually sit there and go, oh, wow, that flare popped off, or there's been a bunch of solar flares in the last 2 days. And all of a sudden, maybe you start not feeling good and you go, oh, that's it. So think of it as what's making you feel bad is it's dumping bile. Okay. I was kind of covering this. I kind of got sidetracked. But when you are dumping a ton of bile from the liver and you are leaking it into your bloodstream, first of all, you're probably still pooping a good amount out, especially if you're making sure you're pooping. Very important on the program. Next, it's going in your bloodstream and it's coming out your kidneys. Your kidneys are getting rid of some of it. This is why Grant Genereux, his kidneys were failing. He was dumping too much vitamin A toxic bile into his bloodstream. It was going to his kidneys, and that was like a weak link of his. Well, he also had jaundice, so his liver was not doing well. And then he had the third thing, eczema. So skin issues, the vitamin A is coming out of your skin. The toxic bile is coming out of your skin, irritating your skin on the way out. It's sitting on your skin. It's getting stuck in those dry skin layers and continuing to irritate things. So when you are dumping a ton of bile, in effect, you probably are getting rid of the toxicity faster overall. Some of you are going to think, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I say, but your suffering is going to be proportional to that increase. So if you push it really, really hard, you're going to feel really, really bad. And then tough guys, think that they can just push through it and keep going and just suffer. And then I tell them, you don't know how many months or years worth of that toxicity you have in your liver. So you could be pushing really hard. I mean, like, and what if you did something? What if something happened, like you push so hard and the toxic bile is going to your kidneys and your kidneys are your weak link, and then you cause kidney damage because you just got greedy and impatient? These are the things that are causing us to be sick. They're causing us to be sick. So if you dump even more of them into your system than you can handle, do you understand that the very things that are making you sick already can make you more sick in the short term? So like with space weather, what I'm expecting as soon as the space weather passes, because I knew I was dumping more garbage than normal, I didn't want to. It didn't feel good. I would have stopped it if I could, but I don't know how when these things happen. I'm going to feel even better after this is over, because I've gotten a lot of toxins out I was suffering because I was getting more toxins out, but I also had more toxins floating around in me. So I felt bad. But I also got rid of a lot in this time. So you can look at it as, there's good and bad about it. Okay, so let me get to Ramon's chat. Let me find it here. Okay. Ramon asks, what could jumping/twitching veins in both my calf muscles be a sign of? Started 2 years ago and sometimes goes away for days, but always comes back. Thank you. Okay. Jumping or twitching veins. Okay. That's something that doesn't come up too often. A generality that we go by is, it could very well be increased blood pressure at that time. Like, so if you have more pressure in those veins, you may see the veins like pulsing with the heartbeat. Maybe some of you have seen, people with like the vein on their forehead. I remember seeing, what's his name? Charles Poliquin. He's not around anymore, but I remember seeing him at a wholesale supplement place for like naturopathic doctors and other alternative type practitioners. And I saw him. I was amazed at how short he was. I expected him to be like much taller. He was, I don't know, 5'6", maybe 5'4". But what I saw, I didn't realize how big, how jacked he was. I mean, he did not deny the fact that he was a fan of steroids. And just the blood vessels on the side of his head were outrageous. I was like, that dude's cranial blood pressure must be so high. And he was probably a big fan of vitamin A, and he didn't live that long. So performance enhancing drugs and taking tons of vitamin A, and I'm sure he took tons of vitamin D. I'm sure you could probably go find his pro vitamin A and pro vitamin D articles. He was a mega supplement doser, and he died early. So those of you out there who think you're going to fix your problems with mega doses of supplements, that's a drug effect. Anything can be turned into a drug. Okay? In terms of a drug-like effect. Right? You can put saline water into a bag and shove it up your vein IV. Is that water, or is that a drug-like effect of water? You're shoving water into the system. So you can do this with anything. But if you're taking mega doses, like those, oh gosh, the Hormones Matter people taking their like grams and grams of thiamine, B1. Like, that's a drug-like effect of thiamine. And then they start going, oh, well, I got to take this B vitamin, and oh, I got to take this B vitamin too. And they start throwing in other B vitamins. It's just like polypharmacy. You take one drug, you get a side effect, you take another drug, maybe that helps, and then you get another side effect, and then you take another drug. Well, what are people doing with B vitamins? B1. Oh, and then I'm going to add B2, and then I'm going to add B6. And then they just go, screw it, just take a B complex. The B complex concept is such a bunch of garbage. And then you start learning that Merck and the American Chemical Society love to like self-congratulate each other on how great they're doing on educating the world about B vitamins and getting B vitamins to everybody who needs them. Merck, wow, didn't I mention Merck and ivermectin and fenbendazole? Merck and the American Chemical Society. The American Chemical Society. Talking about how wonderful B vitamins are and how much they're helping all of humanity with their B vitamins. Nicotinic acid, flush niacin, is an amino acid. It is not a B vitamin. So don't bring that up as some sort of argument. Just because they called it a B vitamin doesn't mean it is. So anyway, let me go find. So that was Ramon. Did I finish that question? Let me see. Oh, so normally, okay, so I will say this. Leg cramps, calf cramps, foot cramps, hamstring cramps at night particularly are related to potassium deficiency. Okay. That's a pretty classic potassium deficiency. If you're getting cramps in your calves or feet or legs at night, dead giveaway for potassium deficiency. what could now if you're like, well, I'm getting plenty of potassium, what's going on? Well, if you're dumping too much copper, you're dumping too much vitamin A, you're taking vitamin D supplements, or you have in the past, these things all, vitamin A blocks potassium channels, vitamin D depletes potassium. I have the research, copper depletes potassium. So if you're taking these things, or if you're detoxing them too hard, then you can cause these symptoms. In the short term, you can fix your potassium intake. In the long term, you want to get rid of the poisons that you're putting in, or that you did put in, that you have stored, and now you want to get rid of. So the other thing you might look at, Ramon, is, let's say if there's days where you eat things that you shouldn't, or consume things that are kind of toxic, like alcohol or other things like that. If you notice like that night or the next day that this tends to pop up, that would make sense. Another thing that people don't realize. So okay. Sodium, salt, and blood pressure. Y'all need to realize this. I'm not saying that you have to go on a low sodium diet. I am saying that sodium is what we call a salt, a mineral salt. It's not, mineral salts can be all sorts of things. Potassium chloride is a mineral salt. Like there's all sort, magnesium chloride is a mineral salt. There's a saying in in physiology or chemistry that water follows salt across membranes. So let's say somebody ate a super salty meal. That sodium gets into their bloodstream. What can your body do to not have an excess concentration of sodium in your bloodstream? Well, you can move water from the other tissues into your blood. Water follows salt. So if you increase the salt in your blood, you increase the water movement towards there. Your blood vessels are like pipes. If all of a sudden, so you have to understand fluid dynamics, if you want to call it that. If you put more fluid into the same size pipe, the pressure goes up. Makes sense, right? Try to fit, what's the saying? 10 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag, right? If you try to shove it in there, it's going to be tight. There's going to be more pressure trying to push out. So this is how sodium, in a way, like Ramon, if you notice that after salty meals, this happened. This could be a blood pressure, blood fluid shift. You just have a lot more fluid in your veins, and you can see the heartbeat in the blood vessel because there's just more pressure in them. Now, one of the things that we do notice is that with flush niacin or nicotinic acid, you will start seeing your veins more. They will pop more in terms of like, you'll just see them. I think it's as like having a history of doing bodybuilding. I mean, I love seeing my forearm veins. I think it's cool. I dig it. But, not everybody does. But if you do start noticing this and you're doing flush niacin, that can also be something that flush niacin increases the visibility of. So we got a couple different options. The big thing, Ramon, would be, so watch for if you eat high sodium diets, which would also, sodium is kind of an antagonist of potassium. So I'm talking about, we talked about potassium deficiency and we talked about potentially sodium excess. So if you noticed a pattern of either one of those or both of them together as when this happens, that would be a good indicator. Yeah. And then flush niacin could also increase the appearance of that. So that's what I got. Joe, are there any more super chats? It is 12 o'clock. Otherwise, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. So if you have any other super chats, better get them in quick. So somebody asked about liver and gallbladder flushes. I might talk about those next time. I've had a bunch of people ask about them. They're not magic. It would be like, okay, think of liver and gallbladder flushes. Let me just give a quick analogy here. Liver and gallbladder flushes, like imagine you have a toilet, like your gallbladder, holding your toxic bile. And that's the toilet is full of waste. What a liver and gallbladder flush is it's like plunging. Like, let's say the toilet's not flushing right and you plunge it. But you don't really fix the cause of why your toilet's not getting rid of stuff, which might be, let's say, putting too much toxins in your body would be like trying to flush too much toilet paper or too many wet wipes at once. And every time you do it, it gets clogged up. And then you wonder, why do I keep having to do this to keep my toilet running? So the liver and gallbladder flush is basically a forceful, somewhat violent way of trying to expel a bunch of bile at once through diarrhea, through induced diarrhea. That's it. But if you don't fix the reason why, I mean, think about how much toxicity you have stored in your liver. You have decades worth of toxicity stored in your liver. You dump bile all the time. You can do it in kind of an uncomfortable, like, I mean, I've done liver and gallbladder flushes. They're not fun. I would much rather just eat a quality diet on a regular basis and poop 2 to 3 to 4 times a day than have to do olive oil and Epsom salts. And you don't have to do Epsom salts. You can do some other form of magnesium. It's just magnesium. There's nothing magical about the Epsom salts. And do 3 days of like very little protein and tons of apples or apple juice. It's why not just do a good diet every day instead of forcefully trying to expel bile by taking in these things? Could somebody do it? And maybe if I did hear one woman, she was in the program. I don't know what happened to her now, but she said she got herself out of basically being disabled with chronic fatigue syndrome by doing something like 32 to 35 liver and gallbladder flushes. And I'm like, wow. So part of me is going, that's great. And it does connect toxic bile to her problem. And part of me goes, if she just would have known what to eat and what not to eat, if she did all those liver and gallbladder flushes, she wouldn't have needed as many, and her suffering probably would have been gone even faster. But when you keep plugging up the toilet with the same stuff, it keeps getting clogged. I mean, you can't unplug the toilet fast enough, because every time the toilet is full, it clogs up again. So you have to learn how to not put the stuff in the toilet, and then you don't have to plunge it. I mean, you guys should know, like, if you haven't ever used wet wipes in a normal toilet, if you ever start having plunging problems and you keep having the toilet keeps backing up, the first thing the plumbers say when they come to your house, do you use wet wipes? They will ask you that every time. Whenever your toilet's plugged up and it keeps plugging up, that's the first question they ask you, because they know that toxin in your sewage system will clog it up eventually. Now, you know what they tell you? They say, throw them in the garbage. Don't flush them down the toilet. Even though they say they degrade, well, toxins in you degrade and break down. They oxidize. We talk about this all the time. That doesn't mean they're gone. It's still there. Things breaking down doesn't mean they disappear. So anyway, okay, so I'm going to be on time today. No more super chats. So hope you all enjoyed that. We had the testimonial. We had the things that aggravate vitamin A toxicity. We had several questions. Thank you all for the super chats. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys got something useful out of it. And for those of you who are big fans, and for those of you who are the haters, realize that the more hate we're getting, the more the message is grabbing on. So let them try to spread the hate. I tried to put out an olive branch to the Ray Peak community this last week, and what did we get? One of them made that website. So, you know, we know which one has the high ground here. Angry boy. It's a very angry boy out there. Anyway, just remember, if you're a hater out there and you're watching me, I'm not watching you. So anyway, my website, nutritiondetective.com, you can find all of the contact information down below. You can go to the Love Your Liver program. That's a do-it-yourself program. We got like 2,000 people in there who are helping each other in the way that social media should have been instead of all the trolls. And then you can work with me. You can work with Nathan. We're going to be getting Hope up to speed to be another practitioner very soon. Oh, yeah, the Love Your Liver program is at members.nutritiondetective.com. And otherwise, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave comments, do all that stuff. It helps the robot overlords to know that they should push this to other people. So, okay. We will see you all later. Have a great week. Bye now.